So, thank you for being here, even if, as you know, we just changed the time of the talk. So, happy to be, even if I'm a TBA officially on the on the brochure. Just a presentation. Who am I? I am Simone Onofri. I work for Everett Packard Enterprise. I'm a security business consultant. So I mainly do penetration testing or forensics activities for Europe South. So we are not strictly linked with products like 45 or something else. We do services and fun penetration tests. On the other side, I'm also a director of the SDM consortium. The SDM is one of the organizations who signed the Agile Manifesto a lot of time ago. And I had the opportunity to support this kind of methodologies, also applying into the security projects. In my free time, I'm a volunteer at OWASP. I'm one of the authors of the testing guide version 4. I also run a coder dojo just to teach to children to develop, for example, games, and just for little from 8 to 11 years old, and really nice. Backing to the part about work, I also some certification on Prince2, Agile Project Management, ATIL, which is a very strange. I'm also a Scrum Master, and blah blah blah. Why I have a lot of these kind of certifications? Because in my career, when at one time, okay, now you have to manage projects. Oh, wow, I have to study a lot. As like the same approach in penetration testing, I've read all of kind is possible to learn about. So, but how about you? You work for a penetration testing provider and you offer penetration testing services? Okay, very few people from services. Great. So, how about you if you receive often penetration testing, so you are the target of penetration test? Okay, nice. It's nice because from my personal point of view, I'm offering these services, so it's nice to share through with also a typical customer, because as we will see about Agile, it's often about a collaboration issue between supplier, customer, and also the people. Something else about researchers or something? Okay. Great. So the agenda for this talk is about what is Agile and how we can be used in security testing projects. An example of a typical process about the Agile Project Framework and how it can be applied to security testing, and how it's possible to embed Agile in security testing projects, even if also the strategy for development is already Agile, which is a bit different, the approach, but always the same stuff. So just starting with some definition. Agile, there are a lot of definitions of Agile. That's my favorite one. So is Agile as an umbrella term? It's a very wide, misinterpreted term. It's mainly a mindset. So some people can be, I'm not doing Agile, but I'm being Agile. That's the focal point, because it's merely a type of work, a style of work based on collaboration. So we can find also a lot of techniques, a lot of framework. So Scrum is a framework for Agile, for example, but Agile is not only Scrum, and that's really important. And also we can use these techniques even if we offer services and not products like software. Question is, Agile is often interpreted as not organization, but all changing and confusion. This is wrong. As Sun Tzu said, it's always a way of to organize the work, because the organization depends on order and disorder. And we can use and be Agile just to manage this stuff. So if the project management is about of planning, we can plan also adaptively. So we can adapt also because in some cases when we start to do a penetration test, we have no information about our application if we are doing some web application penetration testing. And in this case, Agile can support us a lot. We also have delegation. I don't know, I work for a multinational company in which there are some people doing the estimating for an offer, and other people we will do the job. Advice of Agile is to delegate at lower level. For example, often I and also my team are called to do estimation, and this is really nice. Also, project management is about monitor and control, but also in this case, this is not micromanagement, like the project manager staying behind you, or if you are testing something, to say that, yes, please test this parameter, test the other stuff. So there is another way to monitor and control. Also because one of the key of the managing projects is about the motivation. And it's motivation about the team, but also about the customer. Because often who manages the target is really stressed because it's under analysis, because there are a lot of issues probably to fix. So this can be better to collaborate really well. The key point of project management and also about services is about we are delivering something. So, but which is the business product or the deliverable we have as security testing projects? That's the first question I'm asking. So, which is the typical business product or deliverable of a web application penetration test? What? Correct, report. This is really important because even if we would like a lot to hack systems to create exploits, the customers, we will give and pay for a report. And this is written also on the testing guide version 4, if you read the part about the introduction. We have also, in fact, to create a formal record of results, and not only. It's important also to write about which kind of test we, in which kind of way we analyzed, and also if some pages are missing, it's important to insert into the report the final scope. Why? So, the security testing is effectively agile. Mainly in environmental factors about software development in general. Nowadays, a lot of software development is already agile, uses mainly, for example, Scrum or another framework. So we are injecting security directly on agile development, in which we have a frequent delivery each week or each 2 weeks. It's like, for example, in Scrum, we are identifying a sprint, for example. But also, if we think about how we can do penetration tests, is Agile by default inside. When you start to work into an application, you probably know nothing about the application. Probably you can look at the technology, the server, but you will go deep after the start of the penetration test. And that's the point. We starting with a few information, and we gather information after the start of the activity. But if we are in a customer and supplier environment, we already selected how many days we have to work and also price. So it can be really challenging. And in particular, if we have a black box penetration testing, by contract, we have no information we can share. And that's really, can really strange to get a good estimate. So my proposal also with this presentation is to give you some tips, suggestions, to sharing some experience on how we can survive to this kind of job in which we have no information about our job. We have a fixed time, for example, a week or 2 weeks, and at the end we have to to know if application is secure or not. Some techniques I already tried with pretty success. The first point is about transparency and communication, which is strictly linked with Agile principle. Because, for example, if you are working into an application and the application has some stubs or some problem or is slow, it's better to communicate. If developers need, for example, to commit some urgent changes, even if we are doing testing, and even if by contract we ask to freeze the application while we are testing, so a developer can think, yes, do the commit without notifying, but that's not suggested. It's preferred to be transparent about that. We can use some agile techniques like, for example, planning poker to do estimation or time boxing to manage time. So time boxing is when we have fixed time. So if you have fixed time, it's really important to communicate with our customer, with customer supply, and how to define priorities of testing. Because, for example, can be most important to do parameter manipulation testing. In other cases, we have some functionalities really business critical. So we have to focus, for example, manually on this kind of functionality, and so on. And then how it's possible to integrate if also the application development is already agile. That's an example of an implementation of an agile project framework. You can find for free the full manual on the sdm.org about different phases, stages of an activity. We have the feasibility study in which often a customer asks for a request for proposal and give us some high-level requirements. By experience, this can be the URL of the web application we have to test, or the kind of application, or also on some cases I found we have to test one application with no any information. This is really high level, and we have also to work with that. Also because it's in this phase, while we are as a supplier giving an offer to the customer, we have to estimate the time, resources, and then calculate the price. It's also important to getting the business case because, for example, if the customer needs a PCI test, I need to follow a specific procedure, specific format for reporting. In other cases is, for example, and this is a real example, the customers need quickly the results and also in an Excel format just to be loaded on the ticketing application for getting in charge fixes to developers. So it's always important because if there is a business case for the customer, there's also a business case, for example, for the supplier. In the second phase, which is the foundation, and is mapped by default when proposal is accepted, and this is a commercial agreement. We also have to work with planning, and also for technical required definition. For example, if we choose to H24 testing, for example, for running automatic tools, we also to define there should be some people on call, both from the customer and from the supplier, just to be aligning if something goes wrong, and into the morning, whole stuff will be work fine. We have also to sign some documentation, like non-disclosure agreement, or the authorization letter, which is an authorization to do activities otherwise illegal. And then we have the evolutionary phase, which is a great cycle, is an iterative activity in which we will do physically the penetration test. This is also the most fun part from my point of view. The third bullet is the most avoided bullet by a penetration tester, is to write reports. Because reporting is not really fun like running an exploit on a website. And then also we can present results. Then also in report we can propose some post-project activities, like for example to go deeper in some kind of vulnerabilities, also to plan a retesting activity is necessary. Some top tips from feasibility, as I said, is to know, both as a customer and a supplier, why I needed the penetration test. As I already said, if it's for compliance, in Italy we have some banking laws which require some procedure in place for testing application or for PCI DSS, or merely because the customer is nice and wants to put in production only secure application. And also it's important in this phase to think about the reporting, because the OSDEM, another methodology used for tests, said in one time the reporting activities can take an half of the time of the testing. If you have the time about 1 week of testing, it can take up to 2 days, for example, to write a nice report. That's important because we have to estimate that. For reporting, you can also visit the testing guide directly with a lot of suggestions about how to write report. That is my command structure, which we have an executive summary focusing on business needs and business risk. A descriptive paragraph about methodology and tools used, also to support the test to be more repeatable. We have also a technical summary and technical details. In some cases, customer asks for a full exploit code, which may be a script or something else. In other cases, it's better to avoid more details. Otherwise, for example, if I have an across scripting, I will script alert 1, then close the script. Something can happen that there is a regular expression that stops only the alert. And if the second way I go with the document.write, there will be, again, the vulnerability. We also have some cases, some specific needs, which can be to load results somewhere. Just ask first to know and estimate correctly. So that's an example. The scenario is we are asked to test using OWASP testing guide, of course, an application of about 20 and 40 pages, which do different profiles with of user authentication. And the first question is who have to do the estimate? This is really important. And other requirements to ask. Ideas about? Okay. So, about the estimates, ask for a lot of information as possible. Even if we are doing some black box penetration testing or, for example, a white box, with the more information we have, more we can be quickly to do the test. In particular, if we are in a time-constrained environment, who are going to estimate is better to technical guys or girls, because this can also differ the time I need for testing an application or a time for this time needed for the same application but a different colleague. This depends often on experience on similar technology or similar application, or because in some cases you have to do a retest, so you can choose if to use the same person tested previously the application or not. So there is a report warning already said, and if we have to travel, consider also the time for travel. Taking a plane can be nice to relax or to write report on the back, but we have to evaluate also this way. Another suggestion is about to ask the 24-hour access, for example, to run some automatic tools, and so optimize, for example, the brute forcing of directories or something else. Question?
Just one more thing. I think that is very important to ask if the solution runs in the cloud, managed by a third party.
Okay.
Because in this case, we need third party approval, which can, in the case of Agile, for example, even get approval relatively soon, but you have to wait 1 week and
Yes.
to start.
Yes, this is an important top tips, and also I have a case recently. So the question and observation was another important things to ask if there are third parties, for example, cloud providers, which is the application is running. This is a fantastic observation because in some cases you have to obtain the authorization letter also from third parties, and this can be established procedures or not. And in some cases it takes a week. In my case, for a test I'm waiting to start, I have to ask for 2 weeks in advance to get the authorization. Some cloud providers has already documentation. In other cases, in the past, the third party was the first time of penetration tested and has no information about how to manage this kind of activity. So ask at first is really, really nice. Probably I will change the slides about. Then also there is to estimate project management time. For example, meetings with the customer to define the scope or something can take a lot of time. So even if it's so boring time in some cases, easily always good to think about. Also in this case, for estimation, Agile is your friend. Just an example, we have a Bright Tray portal with two custom portlets, and one for payment of membership and with the secure payment gateway portlet. So the team lead asked for about to estimate using planning poker techniques. Planning poker techniques is a collaborative estimation technique. You can distribute to your testers a set of cards, more often with a Fibonacci sequence or a linear sequence, and then the tester has to think about to pick a card and, for the estimation and wait, and in this way all testers can estimate without influence each other. This is a clear view and also an opportunity to learn about, and also in some cases talking with the customer about this kind of estimation, also because the customer can answer to questions not clear to the testers. In the first case, we have tester 1 about a lot of time. This is, for example, days. Also, tester 4, tester 2, the same. The only anomaly is the tester 3, which pick up the 5 days card. What we can do? Simply talk, share the truth, and challenge the ideas. What happened in this case? So the team lead seems that there was a tester which estimates only 5 days, which is most different from the others. So let's talk about. And the tester said, I just tested a similar Bright Ray a few weeks ago and have a procedure, an automation, and also post-exploitation scripts about that. So I will be quick to test this kind of system. And also the one said, okay, perfect, nice. Probably I was out of office these days and I have not information about your last test. But from my side, the payment portlet will be more complex because there's a lot of defenses like random error handling and so on. So this can be. When the all testers cleared about point of views, there is the second round, and that can be second estimate, which will be, for example, someone concerned about the first estimation, someone still remain on the position, and also others adapted and bring down the estimate. In this case, we have, for example, a learning point for testers and also in case for the customer. And it can be also useful to get, in this case was nice because there was a more cheap activity as more interesting without losing time. So that's a really interesting technique we can use also with some applications on mobile phone just to take the virtual card to get the estimation. Also, when when the customer and supply accepted the offer, we can have the foundation phase. The suggestion is to prepare a document. It can be also an email. The important is wrote somewhere. It's a document about the scope, the rules of engagement, and most important, the communication strategy. For example, the common payload for SQL injection is or 1 equal 1. If you have a lot of records, you may know the application can crash, or the scope, you can saturate the sockets between the web application or the application server and the database. If this can happen, maybe, for example, using an automatic script to do that, it's important to have an established procedure to bring up the phone and say, so we have a problem, Houston. On the same side, if there are a DBA just looking for the database as problem, can call us and they say, what happened? The other big point is to take priorities, because in particular, if you work in a fixed time, we have a few time and a lot of stuff to do. And the solution is to to use a strategy for prioritization. And this is often created by a workshop or a meeting, virtual meeting, or which you prefer. And we have to define the priorities. Why this is important? Because if we think to be agile, the whole objective is to do not compromise quality. Because quality is important. Also in the testing guide is wrote that you can have a lot of problems about wrong perception of security if you do a bad quality penetration test to the customer, even if you try something. So the transparency is crucial, for example, to get the list of the various pages not tested. But also, if we have to use as a variable the functionalities to test, we have to agree which kind of functionalities to exclude or which kind of test to exclude. What we can prioritize? We can prioritize the search for specific vulnerabilities, which kind of functionalities, for example, workflow components like authorization, like authentication, like specific functions, or for specific lively use cases. This can be found really useful to create use cases, both for developers and both for attackers. This is really useful for, in particular, the business logic testing. If there are specific procedure, a bit complex, we have to test at first. Also because business logic often needs manual testing and difficult to automate. There is also a way to do that, but preparation can take some time. Then we can combine into the metrics. We can get prioritization like 1, 2, 3, 4, or use more complex and more flexible way to do that. And we also to think about when and if to go deep. For example, we found a SQL injection using some blind techniques. Would you like we exploit that or not? This can be interesting, also boring if it's not nice to never exploit something, but can be useful to get the job done. Also, we can get difference, like in ASBS service for OWASP, about the difference between automatic testing and manual testing. My personal view is to use both approach, combining them to get the job done quickly, and also false positive management. If we have an application with errors are really tricky, non-trivial, also we can encounter some false positive. And to identify false positive can be really time-consuming. So we can mark also as only identified vulnerabilities not exploited, or possible false positive, talk with the developers about that. Also, this is more a white box approach, I know. But if you have a few time, probably is more information we have, more we can be quick. Also, some vulnerabilities can take, for example, if a SQL injection on a non-critical functionality can impact also the same database of the critical functionality. That's because often it's good to take some parameter manipulation tools working automatically by night, for example. A technique really useful, I use it a lot of times, is about the Moscow. It's a precision technique in which we can have each kind of item prioritized by, can be a must, so it's vital. So by contract, by agreement, I have to do this kind of must. Otherwise, the project will fail. A suggestion about balancing this kind of requirements is to get a good percentage of the must requirement that we can have about the effort. Then we have the should requirement, which is so important but not vital. So it's not will not fail the project, but challenged. It's about 20%. So we can use this kind of percentage. Depends on the risk we would like to use for this project. There are code that has desirable items, which is merely our contingency. So we, as a rule of thumb, we have about 20% of effort of contingency, and won't have, for example, deep exploitation of SQL injection. This will be auto-scope for the test, but for example, can be a next activity. There's an example of anonymized metrics about this kind of prioritization. We have the example from the previous planning progress example. We have a payment functionality, a registration procedure, an authentication system, and also the private content portlet. That's the way we prioritized. We have some master, but with automated scan, and also focusing on manual approach for really critical part of the application. In this case, we will be was mainly talk with the customer. It's a workshop, a meeting. We can explain about the prioritization technique and think about how it's important for the customer and also for our experience. Because a customer can say, yes, I'm not interested in SQL injection. Why? That's because the database is already updated with the latest Microsoft SQL Server updates. Okay, but SQL injection is at application level, so we have still to test. Another little box on this kind of Excel file. If you like to have this Excel, drop me an email, I will send you the file. As priorities, for example, no exploitation. In this case, was really challenging time activity, and also false positive management. This is also useful for PCI DSS penetration test, in which this is the default way. We have to master check if there are false positive high vulnerabilities. For example, running automatic scanning, there are some false positive depending on the scanner. For example, on one of our tools has a lot of high false positive on XML injections. And so we obviously have to check first to give to the customer critical vulnerabilities, which is a false positive, or for example, a medium that should be tested. So but it's most important to manage the false positive about high vulnerabilities. As we said, if you work in a time boxing environment in which, for example, you have only 1 week to test an application, this is a nice strategy about the structure of our time boxing. So we work on a priority of items and also some suggestion. At first, we have the investigation phase, also the effort about 10–20%. And for example, in this case, we will do all part of information gathering activities of the OWASP testing guide. Then we have the refinement, which is about, for example, the big part of the activity, and we will do all the tests. But at one time, we have to stop starting activities, and we have to start closing open tasks, just to get the common and static results, not with something. Yes, we tested this page, but partially. This is not really nice to write on a report, and so consider at least on half a day or 1 day if you have a 1 week time box to consolidate the activities you are doing. Then often we have a close-out meeting with the customer to explain what we was able to test, was excluded, and also, for example, can occasion to plan a next activity for going deeper for some activities, or to agree about the retest. There are some cases in which there is already implemented secure software development life cycle, which is pretty rare, but there are, apart from experience in Italy, which is we are more focused on waterfall approach, how we can do this kind of activities. If we have an agile life cycle also for software development, we have a lot of iterations. Let's call it iteration, call it time box, call it the sprints. But the important point is at the end of the development or in a specific milestone, do a penetration test, even if you have you are confident about your application, and even if you have already tested all components. Why? Because having also a global view of the whole application can help you a lot to identify something. Also because if you do a lot of testing of lines of code, we have in this case the opportunity also to analyze also the application server, the web server, and the whole structure in production, which can be made pretty different from development environment. Another part is to implement a definition of done, which can be the criteria in which we can accept a piece of softwares. And we also need some definition of done also for security testing. For example, thinking about the OWASP top 10, for example, or something else. We can implement also heavily user stories. For example, most common to identify a problem in business logic or something. And a really nice technique is to do pair programming with a security expert. Because in this case, we have very positive experience. Can be pretty difficult the first time you do, or as a developer or as a tester, just to look all together the same monitor in two heads. And the developer can explain about the logic of the code. The tester can think about how it's important to think about the security into the code. This is, I think, one of the most powerful techniques because also this is a way to learn for developers to write secure code. Also because in OpenSAM, we have the training as a fundamental part of security lifecycle. And also depends on the kind of agile framework we are using. We have also a role which is the technical advisor, which can support, for example, on-demand developers thinking about how to bring security into the application. Also, this is if into the developers like to use Kanban for managing tasks. Our first strategy is to, for example, in this case, each post-it is a functionality, is something that we can move through the development lifecycle till to arrive to acceptance and then to deployment. And we can have post-its or tasks with a different color. In this case, this was a SQL injection identifying on vulnerabilities. And in this case, the strategy for vulnerabilities was to use the lean concept about the stop and fix. So developers stops to work on anything else and bring the urgent post-it and the urgent task because a SQL injection is a bit critical in this case, also in this specific case, and to move forward until the acceptance, first to move to other stuff. In some cases, we also see an additional lane on the Kanban, which can take so an expedite lane for security task. On the other side, you can also use a similar Kanban also to take, if you have a huge team, a lot of application to test in contemporary, you can also use a Kanban just to manage also penetration tests in different phases. So, thank you. And okay. If you have some also examples of documents or questions, we have some time. Otherwise, we can be on the bar for a beer and let's talk about. Also, if you need some templates, I have some, sadly, Excel file because as you can see, I have a Windows PC. But so happy to share and to listen about you. Questions? Okay, so I often use curl, and I analyze manually the application, and then, for example, using some tools like OWASP ZEP, I create macros with API, or as my favorite is the bash with curl, in which I can take custom iterators just to look about. Yes, I have some a bunch of scripts already for example, exploiting specific SQL injection, or for specific vulnerabilities, I can customize. As often but depends also on customer, I like to give to the customers of the scripts in which they can learn themselves to fix. Also, the difficulty with some test in which if you have a unit test, for example, to look for scripts and for a specific vulnerability, in some cases I see developers will fix only this specific word. Then this is wrong. This is a problem with the principle of how to fix some stuff. This is also a discussion about the customers you can map if the customers can learn about or only, also because often developers need to fix very quick without thinking about the vulnerability. That's one of the common problem. Okay, thank you.
So in your case, the repos are documents like PDFs, or do you integrate with developers tools like Jira or any other?
Okay, so just to repeat the question, if report can be documents or can be an integration with Jira or some other stuff. Both, depends, you have to the customer first. In some cases, we also get the access directly to the Jira to open automatically each kind of vulnerability also to different developers, or just to put them and then pick up. In other cases, we have also a tool which can be installed on customer environment just to get to meet developers which will open vulnerabilities open, and also can be nice because the tester only have to write SQL injection, the parameter, and this tool can take automatically description. So that depends. It's possible. It's my suggestion to ask. Just to take an example on a different stuff, I was really a fan of Tenable Nessus, but also because in some cases the report customers with some problems with report, I have a set of tools just to recompose the output as the customer needs. Thank you for the question. Another question? Okay, that's a really nice question. It was about how many time to invest to CVSS calculation. So actually, I'm working with CVSS v2, even if v2, as you know, is not really thinking about web application vulnerabilities. That can be a real problem. We use some approach like discussions, like the planning poker, between testers on how to score the vulnerability. And as a concept of transparency, I always give also the vector. Giving the vector can be useful to also to the customers to also, if they have a business impact analysis, to rebalance the vulnerability depending on the specific asset. And also in some cases can be useful if you have a lot of vulnerabilities to prioritize again all the stuff.
It takes quite a time. According to my experience, if you just do the high, you get about the same result for drastically less time.
Yes, in some cases, after we have actually a database of most common CVS vectors for single vulnerabilities. And after that, we also have CVSS, but it's also a scale like high, medium, and so on, which is also have to be compliant with PCI. And also with a customer is, I think, the most simple way to get the vulnerabilities, which is a green signal about go to production, or red signal just to stop fix and then go to production. But so in my experience, it's always good also because to invest time in reporting and in CVS vectors, because it creates a lot of value, in particular if the report will be not only for technical people, but also if to pass the risk management, CVSS v2 or v3 better can help a lot the customer in giving priorities. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. If you like to talk or a beer, drop me a